Does that leave you? Oh, with non-conventional power. What's that a euphemism for? Nuclear weapons. And the effects of that hardly need to be explained. Well, they can't be fully known because modern nuclear weapons, Harry Truman, the then president, 1945, we'd lose 1 million men if we didn't drop the atomic bombs that we did. It's an act of peace. The most humane thing you could do is to end this now with nuclear weapons. That's the case Mark Levin is making to the president, who just last week recommended that all Americans watch Mark Levin's show. It's time to say no, absolutely not, and say it directly to the president, no. In case you're thinking about using some weapon of mass destruction against the population of Iran, in whose name we liberated Iran, we killed their religious leader for their benefit. Do you remember that? Everything hangs in the balance right now. This is not hysteria. This is 100% real. And yet, the people in this country, by and large, are sleepwalking along. No.
Look, I need you to actually pay attention to this one. Like, I'm serious. This isn't your usual culture war nonsense or some politician lying about their tax returns. Tucker Carlson just laid out, in terrifying detail, how we're being primed for nuclear war with Iran. And the most chilling part? He's watching it happen in real time on cable news. Easter weekend. While people were with their families, Mark Levin, who Trump literally tells people to watch, went on TV and made the case for nuking Iran. You think I'm exaggerating? I'm not. Tucker walks through the entire logic chain of how we go from open the Strait of Hormuz to, well, guess we gotta use nukes. And nobody's stopping it. Nobody in power is saying no. So yeah, you're gonna wanna see this. Let's get into it.
The president of the United States keeps laying down markers. You can't go past next Tuesday at 2 p.m. or whatever. You must open the strait or else you'll be living in hell, as if we're not there already. And at a certain point, what we're doing is revealing that we've exhausted conventional power. If there's some tricky way to open the Strait of Hormuz by air, probably would have done it by now, because we are on a path to plunge the world into global depression and famine. And that's not hair on fire panicism. That's math. 30% of the world's fertilizer, 20% of its energy? Yeah, that's a global depression and famine. What happens to Africa? 1.5 billion sub-Saharan Africans without enough fertilizer? Well, a lot of them will be living in the United States. That's just going to happen. It's right across the Atlantic Ocean. Check a map. So getting the strait open is the essence of the mission. It is the strategic goal. By the way, not to be bitter, it was open on February 27th and had been for, since there were pirates roaming the strait. For modern history, it had been open. Now it's closed because of this war. Okay, so there's that. But leave that aside. Okay, that was then. How do we get it open? Conventional airstrikes will not open the strait for very obvious reasons. You can close it with mines. So if you reach the end of your conventional power, where does that leave you? Oh, with non-conventional power. What's that a euphemism for? Nuclear weapons. And the effects of that hardly need to be explained. Well, they can't be fully known because modern nuclear weapons have never been used. But you can just draw obvious conclusions, like life in Iran, not possible. So you wipe out a country of 92 million people. What about directly across the Persian Gulf? What about the 7 other countries, all of them allies of the United States, the biggest oil producing countries in the world? Could you live there? What about the 100-odd million people who live in those countries? Maybe not possible for them either. Would a nuclear strike be followed by peace? Probably not. The U.S. isn't the only country in the world with nuclear weapons. You could have a global nuclear war. That's why we haven't used nuclear weapons in 80 years. No one has. Because you don't know where it goes from there. This is insane. Okay? This is insane. It's hard to believe you even need to say this out loud. Oh, but you do. Because all things being equal, that's where we're heading. And how do we know that? Well, there are a million signs, but the most obvious is the dumbest neocons in Trump's orbit are saying it out loud. Now, in some cases, you don't even want to mention their names because these are not decision makers. These people are very much like Jeffrey Epstein. They're not actually the evil mastermind. Jeffrey Epstein's kind of an idiot. He's an employee, obviously. He's a communications hub. He's to get the message out to your people. And it's the same with America's most prominent neocons. They're not making policy. They don't understand anything. They don't have huge audiences. They have no organic power. They're messengers and flack takers. They're the ones who get the abuse for the policies of others. Put some lunatic on TV. Rah! Everyone can hate him. But is he coming up with the plan? No, of course not. He's got a weekend show on Fox. But it's useful to watch what he says. In fact, the President of the United States himself has said this. Watch Mark Levin on Saturday night. You think Trump is dumb? You think he's doing this to juice Mark Levin's ratings? No. It's not possible to increase the ratings of someone nobody wants to watch. The point is to send a message. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's true. Levin's show, written probably not by Levin, which has almost no viewers, has been a place where the future is revealed in its broadest outline. It's a place to test ideas. It's a place to announce obliquely what's going to happen. And his most recent show should get you sitting bolt upright in your chair. And yes, this ran this weekend, Easter weekend, as if the defiling of beauty couldn't be more obvious. Easter week, could you pick another weekend to give the finger to Christianity other than Easter weekend? Apparently not. In fact, of course you couldn't. That's the point. Do it on Easter. Anyone who will accept this will accept any humiliation. In any case, here's what Mark Levin said on his Easter weekend show about what we ought to do next in Iran. Watch.
And the casualty numbers, as horrible as any casualty is, need some context. Let's look at World War II. The Battle of the Bulge, 80,000 to 90,000 plus casualties, deaths and injuries and so forth. Nearly 10% of all the casualties in World War II happened at the Battle of the Bulge near the end of the war. The Battle of Okinawa, 50,000 plus casualties, over 12,000, nearly 13,000 killed on that island, which is what convinced Truman that we would lose a million men if we didn't drop the atomic bombs that we did. So this is
Okay, so first of all, Easter weekend. They picked Easter weekend to float the idea of nuclear war. Like, the symbolism couldn't be more disgusting, right? The whole weekend is supposed to be about resurrection and hope, and these ghouls are on TV making the case for vaporizing 92 million people. But here's the thing, and Tucker nails this. Mark Levin isn't some rogue lunatic with a YouTube channel. Trump literally told people to watch his show last week. Do you think Trump does that randomly? Like he's just helping Mark Levin's ratings out of the goodness of his heart? No. Levin is a messenger. He's a trial balloon. They float these ideas on his show to see how the public reacts before they actually do it. And the argument Levin's making, did you catch it? Is the exact same logic they used to justify Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, if we don't nuke them, we'll lose 1 million troops in a ground invasion. So actually nuking civilians is the humane choice. That's the pitch. That's what they're selling. And here's why it's working on some people. It sounds reasonable if you don't think about it for more than 5 seconds. But the second you actually engage your brain, it falls apart. We're not in 1945. Iran has allies. Russia has nukes. China has nukes. Pakistan has nukes. You think you just nuke Iran and everybody goes, well, okay, guess that's that. No. You set off a chain reaction that ends civilization. And Tucker's right. The reason we're even talking about this is because conventional power has failed. We can't open the Strait of Hormuz with airstrikes because Iran can just mine it. We can't do a ground invasion because that's Vietnam on steroids. So we're out of options. Except we're not out of options. We could, I don't know, maybe try diplomacy, maybe not start wars we can't finish. But that's not even on the table. Instead, we're escalating toward the nuclear option because the people running this show would rather end the world than admit they screwed up. And here's what nobody in the media is talking about. Who benefits from this? Follow the money. Defense contractors are making billions off this war. Oil companies love chaos in the Middle East because it drives up prices. And the political class gets to look tough on TV while working people's kids get shipped off to die. It's the same scam every single time. They wrap it in patriotism and national security and supporting the troops, but it's just a wealth transfer from your pocket to Raytheon's shareholders. Let me know in the comments. Do you think people like Levin actually believe this stuff? Or are they just reading a script handed to them by the people who profit from war? Because I genuinely don't know which is worse.
For a peace mission to stop nuclear weapons that can blow away millions of Americans. Every bit as important as World War II. This is a crucially important military operation, war, call it what you want, peace mission. And we ought to be celebrating the success of our military, unifying around our military and our commander-in-chief, and urging them to complete the task so our country is safe from nuclear weapons by insane, suicidal primitives from the 7th century.
Did you catch that? Did you make it through the whole clip? It's not easy. It's not easy, but embedded in there, and that's why we prefer a transcript over the actual audio. Embedded in there is something you need to know. It's an argument that is being test-driven, and since no one, to our knowledge, has pushed back against it, may be in full operation now, it's an argument for nuclear weapons against Iran. And here's to restate, in case you couldn't make it through the accent, here's what he said. Nearly 10% of all casualties in the Second World War happened at the Battle of the Bulge, which, of course, at the end of the war. The Battle of Okinawa, 50,000 casualties, nearly 13,000 killed on that island, which is what convinced Truman, Harry Truman, the then president in 1945, we'd lose 1 million men if we didn't drop the atomic bombs that we did. Did you hear that? That's Mark Levin's counsel to our sitting president, Donald Trump, right now. You are looking at a choice between the catastrophic loss of your troops in a ground war or the use of nuclear weapons, which, in a sense, if you think about it, just think about it for a second, is actually an act of peace. It's an act of peace. The most humane thing you could do is to end this now with nuclear weapons. That's the case Mark Levin is making to the president, who just last week recommended that all Americans watch Mark Levin's show. Okay. This is not like crazy dot connecting here. This is one-to-one. This is really obvious where we're moving. And again, we're moving toward the use of weapons of indiscriminate mass destruction, possibly nuclear weapons, but non-conventional weapons. Not bombs dropped from the air or missiles launched from launchers, but the use of weapons that have never been used in war ever. And the argument is the same argument that you heard in 1945, or didn't hear, by the way, if you're an American civilian. No one ever cuts you in on this. Thank heaven for Mark Levin saying it out loud so the rest of us can at least follow along and know what we're in for and implicated in. But the argument that it's actually much more humane to kill tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of civilians than it is to fight it out with the Marine Corps on the rocky shores of mainland Iran. That's the argument. But it's not just the argument that one guy in cable news is making. It is the logic of escalation in this war, because in some sense, Mark Levin is right. We are not going to open the straits with the United States Marine Corps, the 82nd Airborne, or the Tier 1 operators that everyone on cable news seems to know so much about. The Tier 1 operators, Tier 1. Just guys, like some of the best guys actually in America could be killed in this. That's a better way to put it. It's a more real way to put it. They are not going to open the strait. And so unless somebody puts the brakes on right away, we're going to wind up in a place that we can't even imagine. Not just Iran, us and the rest of the world. And so that means, because this is obvious to anyone who's paying any attention, that if you work in the White House or in the U.S. military, now it's time to say no, absolutely not. And say it directly to the president, no. in case you're thinking about using some weapon of mass destruction against the population of Iran, in whose name we liberated Iran, we killed their religious leader for their benefit. Do you remember that? This was last month. Those people who are in direct contact with the president need to say, no, I'll resign. I'll do whatever I can do legally to stop this because this is insane. And if given the order, I'm not carrying it out. Figure out the codes on the football yourself. Because everything hangs in the balance right now. This is not hysteria. This is 100% real. And yet, the people in this country, by and large, are sleepwalking along. No, the future will be pretty much like today, maybe a little different. That's not the lesson of history. Things change fast and forever. There are pivot points where nothing is the same. And sometimes it's better, but mostly it's not. And this is one of those cases where it might not be at all better.
So here's the bottom line. Tucker Carlson, who, by the way, is not some anti-war leftist, he's a conservative who supported Trump, just spent 10 minutes explaining in excruciating detail how we're being walked into nuclear war. And he's right. Like, this isn't speculation. This isn't conspiracy theory. Mark Levin went on TV on Easter weekend and made the case for nuking Iran using the exact same logic from 1945. And Trump told people to watch Levin's show. That's not random. That's coordination. And the most terrifying part? Nobody's stopping it. Tucker's point at the end is the most important thing in this whole video. If you work in the White House, if you're in the military, if you have any proximity to power right now, this is the moment to say no. This is the moment to resign if you have to. This is the moment to refuse the order. Because once that first nuke goes off, there's no taking it back. You don't get a do-over. Civilization doesn't reboot. But the American public? Sleepwalking. Tucker says it himself. People think tomorrow's going to be pretty much like today. That's not how history works. There are moments where everything changes forever, and this is one of them. We are closer to nuclear war right now than we've been since the Cuban Missile Crisis, and half the country is arguing about trans athletes and Disney movies, because that's what the billionaire-owned media wants you focused on. They don't want you thinking about the fact that we're about to start World War III over a shipping lane. And look, I'm not saying Tucker's perfect. He's got his own blind spots. But on this, he's dead right. This is insane. This is genuinely insane. And if we don't wake up right now, if people in power don't start saying no right now, we're going to look back on this moment and realize it was the last off-ramp before everything went to hell. Drop a comment. Are you worried about this? Do you think there's anyone in Trump's orbit with the guts to stand up and stop this? Because I genuinely don't know. And that should terrify all of us. If you made it this far, hit that like button, share this with everyone you know, and subscribe to MB, because this is the kind of thing the mainstream media will never cover honestly. They'll debate the optics, they'll talk about polling, but they won't tell you that we're being primed for nuclear war. That's what we do here. We follow the money, we call out the grift, and we don't let you sleepwalk into catastrophe. Stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one.